All right, people, how we doing? How's everybody doing? We back, and it's time to discuss more Manchester United debacle. The latest debacle, we shall say, which is Manchester United transfer targets for the summer. Because let's be honest, when you're talking Man United, you're talking transfers, they go hand in hand. Whether you say it's part of the spin campaign, or whether you think there's a genuine ambition from the club, and that there is major plans for a big overhaul in the summer. Because if we were to delve into the Liverpool pool of stories, usually they like to write, there's a big promise of a major war chest, big spend in the summer. Then you get to the summer, nothing really happens. They promise to do some business in January, gets January, nothing really happens. And then they promise that they're saving the money in January for the summer. But, rinse and repeat, you go back to square one. Manchester United, I think, is a little bit more on the actual sort of, we promised to do business in the summer. We'll do some business, but maybe the business is not quite what we're looking for, or it's not quite enough to deliver the adequate results. So, suppose we can look at the current stories we've got circling around at the moment and ask ourselves, what is the likeliest outcome? Last summer, I mean, this is with Ineos ownership and an Ineos transfer strategy. We've seen in January that they do take a rather disastrous scenario and underwhelm or underdeliver. I suppose in the summer we did have Dan Ashworth in the position of conducting the business. Didn't really sort of completely sell the show. He didn't steal the show with the transfer dealings, but he did do some business, and I suppose you could argue that most of the signings we made for the summer at the moment, as far as individuals go, are performing better than some of the individuals that we've had here for a long time, or a longer time. So, yeah, you can say that there's sort of micro positives in that regards, but he's not here anymore because I suppose the ownership looked at the strategy Dan Ashworth fronted and were just like, oh no, this is not what we're looking for. This is bad, and let's get rid of him. So Dan Ashworth, in the job for a lot less time than he was in his gardening leave, was suddenly no longer at the club, and I don't think we've really actually officially appointed the replacement to Dan Ashworth. Christopher Vivell, who was on his job role temporarily, has now been given the permanent role. And I think Jason Wilcox is basically sort of filling in that role. At least to my knowledge, he's filling in that role at the moment where Dan Ashworth once occupied. So I suppose in this summer coming up, based off of what we've seen so far, is don't expect the world from this board. Don't expect the world. They probably will not deliver what it is that we hope for. Right? Maybe we'll see one or two niche bits of business, but ultimately, on the whole, on the contrary, we won't be sold a dream. We won't really be sold a dream. We'll be sold a bitter reality pill, the reality bites medication, and we'll see a couple of signings who maybe they'll do okay, but there's no telling whether they'll actually find impact because thinking about the markets that we probably have to shop in, um, may not be by plan or by default that they see or that we see impact from these signings in the summer until the next season or the season after that or the season after that. Unless you can force them into the team kind of like how Aiden Heaven has been sort of forced into the team. It hasn't really, or Chido Obi um, has been forced into the team. Um, I suppose it's not really the situation we want it to be, but it's a situation that's just, it happens. It's with the hand has been forced, the die has been cast. So players that are meant to be for the future are being used now, you know, because we need something to happen now. We need players and bodies now because of our terrible injury record. Which, by the way, I'm pretty sure our club doctor, is meant to be leaving. Um, whether that is a job there, it's like, oh, I want to leave here, I don't like it here anymore, or it was your job has been absolutely piss poor, time for you to go. So leave, basically, leave the club. Which I'm more inclined to believe it would be the latter of the two choices there. So, and I mean, look at the state of play at the moment. The way in which players can very easily turn into players that are just made of glass. Getting injured not just by really exerting themselves by huge margins, but rather just do the very basic things and having season-ending injuries. That's one of the things that we just got to try and avoid as much as possible. And they talk a big game in the Ostu about sports science. Make the players unbreakable, but then you'll see just how true that really is. And to be honest, it does look like some of these players are very, very easily broken. Like the China pieces you'll find, and then somebody puts those China pieces in a shop, and then somebody then sticks a bull inside that same shop. Henceforth the saying, like a bull in a China shop. Suppose we should ask the question: what sort of market is Manchester United going to be looking in? Now, based off of what I've seen from these stories linking us to players, which ones have the most traction to them? And by the looks of it, the ones that look like they have the most legs, the stories that have most legs, and legs do run in the family, especially in my family, joke as it is. It doesn't not look like that we are trying to scour the markets for the very top tier players per se, but rather players that are flying under the radar, that are perhaps just looking for that big break. Now, a couple of examples, names we can probably look at. I mean, I've just seen another, a bit of a throwaway story, but may have some reasonable legs to it. Olympiakos, 17-year-old forward, Charalampos Kostoulas. Charalampos Kostoulas, maybe. But the Greek side do not want to sell him this summer. Depends. I suppose it depends. But one of the standout names that we've been linked with, Jonathan David, which we'll come onto in just a moment, but a couple of other names. There's the Yildiz from, I think it's Juventus. Yildiz, Turkish, young Turkish player. And there was one other, Semenyo. That's it, Semenyo from Bournemouth. Somebody who can perhaps play either by wing back or in one of the 10 positions. Players that I don't think everybody's clamoring over to try and sign, but when you see them play, it's like you can appreciate there's a bit of quality there. But is it enough? And I suppose with the instance of what Amorim may have to be sort of forced into trying to build, whether he has any success with it, he may be forced to building with players that just don't really have the sort of the makeup that's already prepared for this Man United system, but rather players that have the basics down, to a T. It's just shaping and changing the style of the player, and I suppose that might be, uh, especially with Semenyo. I mean, you get exactly what you see with Semenyo. Like, he Premier League proven, a little bit of trickery to him, good attacking positional sense. He's always a goal threat, especially in attacking scenarios for Bournemouth. Um, so I think there's something to be said about that sort of a signing. I think could work out for us, but it depends on what world it is we paint Manchester United, and are we, if you're talking about Manchester United team that's pushing for Champions Leagues or chasing down the Premier League title, Semenyo is not the option you would go with. He simply isn't. But we're not a side that's in a position where we are chasing Premier League titles or Champions League at the moment. We're just not. We're trying to backdoor our way into Champions League through the Europa League. Tough tie against Lyon, wrapped up in the middle of a very difficult run of fixtures in the Premier League, namely Forest, Manchester City, and Newcastle. So, will we get our dream backdoor route into Champions League? I don't necessarily think so. But is Semenyo a sort of player you'd want to sign to sort of find a way back into Europe, full stop? Now, I think that's very much doable. I mean, Bournemouth are in a position where they can, with a solid run of games, put themselves very firmly into European qualifying positions. So Semenyo's already in that position. Obviously, you can ask questions about the rest of the Bournemouth team. Kirkic, I think, is a very solid fullback option, but I reckon a club maybe like Liverpool might look at that sort of a deal. And I think Evan Nilsson, somebody who came from the Portuguese league, did okay, I suppose, over in the Portuguese league, but hasn't really been monumental or significant in the Premier League just yet. I think maybe he could still come good for Bournemouth though, at a slightly latter stage. But I think there's one or two players at least in that Bournemouth side which you can potentially poach. And I think for a team, I think if we're going to be pushing ourselves back up the table, it's almost going to have to be a bit more of a staggered approach. I think you just have to take it in stages. The level of players you're chasing down, just build the strong enough foundations to solidify in that state. Get yourselves, a solid team in that regard, and then just keep layering it up from there. And just gradually get you closer and closer to the targets you want. And I suppose you sort of look at it from that perspective. It's the long way round when you talk about trying to push up back at the table towards Premier League glory. I don't want that to be the case in Manchester United's case. I don't want to be very slowly sort of having to climb up the table in a very unbrisk pace. We're just going to have to be slow and methodical, and that's what we are limited to by the ethos of Ineos. The ethos of Ineos. That rhymes. The ethos of Ineos. Sold a dream. Get told that you're the best, that they are the best in the world, but then witness not the best in the world, but rather the most complicated in the world. I'd probably say maybe Ineos are a bit more complicated than anything else. Let's have a look at the Jonathan David stuff. One of the more recent threads on this. Several Manchester United officials are actively engaging in conversation for a potential summer move for Jonathan David. Again, this is the type of player, this is the caliber of player that we are probably going to look at, given that he was available for about 30 million in the summer, thereabouts £30 million mark. Is it pounds or euros? It's one of those two. but not very expensive versus other strikers in the market. And for somebody who's, what, 25, 26, that's a okay pricing. But I suppose you got to, it begs a question. For somebody who I think has constantly been touted in transfer stories, oh, this player's got great potential, he's got a lot to show for in the locker, and loads of clubs will be chasing after him. Yet every single transfer window that passes, yet again, over and over and over again, Jonathan David just gets overlooked, and you sort of start to wonder, why is that the case? Why is Jonathan David very much overlooked? Is he just an overhyped player? And I think perhaps in various margins he is an overhyped player. He's not a player that I think a lot of clubs, when they go to say, oh, we need to sign a striker, there's usually, at the time where Jonathan David's available, there's usually a market alternative that's better suited for that particular club at that particular time, that every club just seemingly goes for everybody else except Jonathan David. But not to say he's at a bad club. I mean, at Lille, that's a decent club to be at. And I suppose, it's not going to be the end of the world if you are sort of just holding out or holding down the fort at that club, considering there's probably other players that top clubs around Europe might look at players from Lille and go, yeah, we'll take them. I mean, Lenny Yoro, for example, last summer. Angel Gomez available on the free. Jonathan David's contract is out in the summer. So, and that's probably one of the reasons why we're looking at a player like Jonathan David, not because he suits what we need, but rather he's a free option that is, I'd say, as high of a caliber as you can probably get as a free option, which is not, it doesn't fill you with much confidence if that's the transfer strategy. And it doesn't necessarily scream as Sergeant Ratcliffe's acclaim to Man United needing to have the best recruitment in the world. Well, this certainly doesn't live up to that. That doesn't. You're just waiting for players to be available for a free in the summer is not really advisable, even in this state with Manchester United struggling for funds. I mean, you'd still want to put forth, transfer offers for players that will still have contract time left, but to guarantee you sign the right players you need to really push us in the right direction, not just players that are just cheap for the sake and signing them for the sake of signing them. So yeah, Jonathan David. And just to think as a comparison, I know some people might say that Osimhen's not really he's not really as good as people make him out to be. Listen, Osimhen might be a hype player again, but he is better quality wise than a Jonathan David. You'd ask the question, Osimhen, Gyökeres, two players there. I mean, Benjamin Sesko. Is he a better option than Jonathan David? Probably, fairly likely that he is. Lots of these players, a lot of these names that, the top clubs. I mean, you've got stories of Liverpool wanting to go after Julian Alvarez. So, Julian Alvarez that went to Atletico from Manchester City for, what was it, 90 million? Was it 90 million for Julian Alvarez? Crazy stuff. But there's the stark contrast. I think between clubs like us and the other top clubs around the world at the moment. I'm pretty sure there was another player that Man United were linked to. I think it's somebody from Braga. I cannot, for the life of me, remember what the name is. I think it was a fullback or a wing back. Links as well as another name, Prem proven. Brian and Bomo. Brian and Bomo. I would like Mbomo at Man United. I would. I really would like him. He's a solid striker of the ball, strong from the right side of the pitch. Um, Good bit of tenacity. Looks very strong, very very strong. Um, but you know, he's probably going to be one of those players where he's one of Brentford's better players. They're going to charge premium prices for Premier League opposition. So it's going to be difficult to do that sort of a deal, but I would definitely take him. Um, so this is one of the Pletty stories about Yildiz. So Man United want to sign a versatile attacking midfielder this summer. Kenan Yildiz and Xavi Simons are both on the club's list. Xavi Simons, again, we're thinking ourselves to him. I do not know why. Cannot begin to understand why we are doing that. There's more talks of Semenyo. Manchester United were aware of Chelsea's move for Giovanni Quenda, and they could, if they really wanted to, step in and make a move, but elected to pursue other opportunities. Wow, doesn't that ring a bell of spin? You know, the perfect summer signing for Ruben Amorim. But apparently, oh yeah, no, we definitely didn't want him in the summer. No, not a shot. Not a shot. MEOC are plotting a mass clear out of unwanted players to raise transfer funds for the summer, with Sunderland's Joby Bellingham among targets they are lining up. And this is a bit more of a throwaway story because I think we've been linked to Joby Bellingham several times before. All of them were just nothing stories, completely nothing stories, and this one seemingly goes along the same page. So yeah, that's not what we are looking for. Seeing what else we've got here. Another striker, or two strikers, really, that we've been linked to. One that's been a bit more long-winded, Hugo Ekitike. Apparently, been closely monitoring Ekitike since 2022. Talks were held that summer, with Cristiano Ronaldo being a key role model to play with. Hugo was open to joining Manchester United, as per Samsey reports via the United Stand. The other name that was tied into those stories was Liam Delap, another Premier League rival option. And you could say maybe from a young player perspective, I think Delap would be a sound option, to sign. The only problem with that is that Manchester United aren't in the position to have the luxury of introducing Delap into a structure at this club where he can sort of progress and find his levels at this club. He's almost going to have to try and go through the Rasmus Højlund treatment of, you're signed where you should be signed as the second to third choice player. You are the star striker now. Look at me. You are the star striker now. And you must sink or swim. This is your test. And I feel like we'd be making the exact same mistake with Liam Delap. I know that Delap is a lot more Prem proven than someone like Erasmus Højlund, who, let's be honest, Liam Delap's probably got a much better goal score. He would have a much better goal scoring record coming into Manchester United than Rasmus Højlund ever did. Which, by the way, Rasmus Højlund scored for Denmark against Portugal. which, to be fair, as far as a team goal goes, that was really well worked. Intricate passing around the box, and Hoyland's on the end of a tap in. To be fair, I think he almost sent it right into the post or sent it wide, but he got it just on the inside of the post, the right side of the post, and bagged himself the only goal of the night in that international fixture. So, of course, it's good to see that a Man United player is bagging in international duty. But does that really change anything for us on the pitch? Does it change much? I think it's the devil will be in the detail, of course, but I'm not one that's feeling very optimistic on that. I think there's, he might go back into a place of difficulty. I think it'll be a bit difficult for him to continue on a goal scoring run. However, if we can create chances for Rasmus Højlund in the way that Denmark was creating chances, then maybe he'll have a couple of golden opportunities. And so I can't find this this Braga. Let's actually do it this way. Braga. So it's Roger Fernandez as an alternative to Giovanni Quenda. So there's another option. That's the other option for the wing-back positions. So I think that sort of transfer, I think it was commanding a fee somewhere. Yeah, no, they were talking about 43.6 million, apparently, according to transfer fee, which I don't think that is true. I think that is a bit more. I think it's a bit overzealous. I do think that's a bit overzealous. I've just seen the shortlisted right wings of Manchester United. That is a little bit crazy. Just a little bit crazy. I certainly would not read into that price. I don't think Braga is not like a Sporting Lisbon or a Benfica or a Porto for that matter. I think Braga are not your casual Portuguese club, dominating their domestic league and charging Europe's biggest clubs the biggest premiums for their star players as part of the Portuguese footballing factory. Braga probably aren't really in that sort of a position. They probably wouldn't charge as higher premiums, but maybe they could still charge quite a zealous fee. Whether we can match that or we'd be willing to match that, I think is another matter altogether. There was also Trincao that we were linked to from Sporting, but funnily enough, I think Trincao would probably be more expensive than Roger Fernandez would be. But again, for a 19-year-old player, it's you're signing him to be a part of a football factory. Bring players that are not quite ready in to make them ready, and then have the opportunity to sign or to sell these players to spin the profit and to put Manchester United in a more financially stable position in other methods that don't include putting money into the club by ownership's point of view. So that's where we are at the moment, and I feel like the stories at the moment are a bit sort of wacky, a bit all over the place. There's a huge amount of transfer stories, but I suppose from a legitimate talking point, maybe you get a lot more noise in this particular international break because it's the last. I think it's the last international break um, before like the end of the season or something. Whether that's right or not, if it is, then you could probably understand where clubs are starting negotiations for the early summer transfers. Now's the time when players are not focused on their seasons as much. Now's the sort of time where you can start laying out the foundations for your um, summer business plans. Will we see Man United get close in? Will we close in on any business deals for the summer, to get the players in early, or will we be stumbling our way in? Um, I think it's fair to say that in our current predicament, doing as much business as early as possible is a statement of intent and would be a much more positive message to send to the fans to get them a bit more willing to be patient with the playing project with Amorim on the pitch. So I think I suppose in it, if you do that as well, you're basically with actions rather than words, fully backing the manager and believing that he will be the right option for you and will push on to do bigger and better things. So let's see what you're made of, Manchester United Football Club. I can't say don't disappoint me, because that kind of goes against the very fabric of the club. They like to disappoint people, um, especially this modern day version of the club. So yeah. Anyways, guys, leave your thoughts down in the comment section. What you guys think about Manchester United's potential summer plans? Will Man United be in Champions League? Will it boost if we were to be in Champions League? Completely a hypothetical, not by no means a guarantee. If Man United were in Champions League, can you see Manchester United's business in the summer being much more expansive versus without? Possibly, possibly. But at the same time, do you believe in the Ineos ethos? Do you believe that they have got the ability to deliver the Goldilocks summer transfer window for Ruben Amorim? Let's see. Let's find out. Don't forget to smash the likes on the way out, people, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Take care, people, and we'll see you again, I think, or probably tomorrow with Sunday Night Takeaway Show. So let's look forward to that. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday nights, and yeah, we'll catch you most likely tomorrow. Take care, people.